Harmon, President and CEO of Sonic Industries. This has just been phenomenal. One of the things that they've done recently is show the company the employees. It's pretty damn hard to imagine not retaining the company employees by the employees today. Steve Arns, who is now the founder of Lincoln and Foreign Ventures, who was MicroStrain. One of the most notable things about how Steve approached this business in my mind is that in order to gather a collection of really great employees, he had a really strong internship program, 13 interns last year in front of the company. And finally, Joe Frisco, Vice President of Solid Waste Management, and they've just been absolutely fulfilling and moderating the panel, will be somebody who's frankly, I first got involved in this kind of stuff as a volunteer. That's how I started. Chris is the executive director of the United States. Morning, folks, and welcome. Lauren, thank you very much for the introduction. We have a great panel this morning. Outstanding experts from service, recreation, manufacturing, venture capital, and waste management. We've asked them to give you the perspective on challenges and opportunities to doing business with Vermont based on their experiences and growing businesses here in the state. What their suggestions are for overcoming the challenges and their experiences. What are some of the best practices that they have developed that they are presenting here? Each panelist is going to have approximately 10 to 11 minutes. I will try not to be rude and cut them off, but if you want to sit on time, so we'll allow them to finish their talk. At the end of their introductions and opening remarks, we do have microphones down front. We expect audience participants who would like to hear from you. We'd like you to ask questions of our panel. We are a resource to lend to the advantage of them while they are here today. So first up at the far end of the table is Chris.
Ask me what's really important to the growth in our industry, in the ski industry, I'd have to say that what we say at Smugglers is, given our choice between good snow and good management, we'll take good snow every time. Unfortunately, Chris, that's not something that the state can control. So you could say, at least in the wintertime, what we need most, we can't really ask for help. However, if we examine the way our industry grows, it does grow very much in connection with the growth of Vermont. And every time a new business opens in Vermont, or a business grows in Vermont, that helps our industry. So I wanted to discuss with you for just a few minutes this morning an issue that I think can make a big contribution to the growth of Vermont businesses, and that is brand. I've been fortunate over my business career to have been involved in a number of branding efforts by different companies, and I wanted to share 3 short stories with you that I hope will help to make a contribution to how Vermont may be able to deal with this very unusual brand situation that we have in Vermont. Psychiatrists might say we have a dual personality. We have an extraordinarily positive consumer brand, Vermont Pure. We have a mixed business brand, and how we can make those coexist is the subject I'd like to discuss. I should also tell you that I ordinarily use paper notes, and I was convinced to use my iPad for this. So from time to time, if I stumble along, that's my excuse. I usually also don't read, but since Chris gave us a precise amount of time to make our presentations, I thought that I better prepare my notes in a way that could be read. The first story I'd like to tell you is about Wells Fargo in the 1960s. I graduated from Middlebury, a math and economics major, and landed working at Wells Fargo Bank in San Francisco in their just newly formed computer department. Remember, this is the 60s. 3 desks over from me in the same big room was Dick Rosenberg, a very brash young man with an MBA, an MS, and a JD. Dick was Wells Fargo's first marketing hire into the computer department. Wells Fargo had a serious brand problem. That is, that they were recognized at the time of having the worst tellers in the state of California. That was their reputation, and your reputation, as it turns out, if you look at branding, actually is your brand. Well, they decided that they wanted to do something, or try to do something, about making Wells Fargo easier to do business with. So they did what every company might do to begin with. They went to the HR department and asked them to fix the problem of tellers providing bad service. That didn't work. So then they added incentives for the tellers, and that didn't work. And then they tried changing systems, and that didn't work. And of course, the marketing organizations at Wells Fargo were constantly complaining about the bad teller service. So they turned to this brash young guy, Dick Rosenberg, and said, "We'll give you 6 months, Rosenberg, to solve this problem." So Dick then went out into the field and talked to tellers for about a month. At the end of that time, I remember he stopped by my desk and he said, "Bill, I can solve this problem in 60 days for $50,000. I said, "Well, that's quite extraordinary." He said, "And I'm going up to the 12th floor to convince them to let me do it my way." You ever notice how you always refer to senior management by where they are? So up he went to the 12th floor, came back and said, "I got it approved." What Dick had decided to do, and did do, was design an advertising program bragging about how great the Wells Fargo tellers were at their job, and how much fun it is to walk up to the window and transact business with these outgoing, well-groomed tellers. The public advertising was aimed at the tellers and their pride. The outcome was, of course, as he bet on. The teller culture changed, as did the behavior, and the survey showed Wells at the top. Wells Fargo's teller service was rebranded, and so was the bank, as easy to do business with. By the way, 20 years later, Dick Rosenberg went on to become the chief executive officer of Bank of America. So here's the second story. I was at Wells Fargo for 13 years, and then I joined AT&T. I was working in a senior marketing role in 1984, then known as the Bell system. How many of you remember the Bell system? Ah, great. I'm not the oldest in the room. The Bell system was the nation's regulated communications monopoly, for those of you who didn't know that, largely insulated from market pressures for most of its history. AT&T had 1 million employees, 150 billion in assets. Its culture was based on service, technological excellence, reliability, and innovation within a non-competitive, internally driven framework. AT&T, or at that time the Bell system, was able to take as much time and spend as much money as it wanted to get things done right. However, those of you who may remember this, as a monopoly, they were not particularly easy to do business with. Then came the Justice Department's mandated divestiture and significantly less regulated competition. So, the company spun out and separated from the state subsidiaries. The separated company was also a pretty big company, 35 billion in assets, 35,000 employees, and was allowed to offer less regulated services. In order for them to succeed overnight, they had to have a drastic change in their culture. Probably the largest change ever attempted by a major corporation. AT&T had to learn how to find out and deliver what its customers wanted, when they wanted it, compete with others who wanted to fill the same needs. The company had great technological and personnel strengths that they could build on, and they felt that the first thing they had to do was to educate the public and say, Ma Bell no longer lives here. So they launched a massive public relations and advertising blitz to rebrand. That was what we thought we were doing, is rebranding the company. And in 6 months, every survey showed that the entire public, the United States, now knew AT&T and knew the symbol of the globe. However, what didn't happen is there was not accompanying that a change in behavior. In fact, it took about 20 years or a generation of middle managers to change the culture from monopoly to competitive. AT&T spent very little time and money on culture and behavior. Little time becoming easier to do business with. As a monopoly, they were tough to do business with. Competitive enterprise, they spent little time trying to figure out how to be easy to do business with. We had name recognition, but new culture, new behavior didn't follow. And it became very evident as competitors made significant inroads that brand was not accomplished in name, but the behavior. In mathematics, we would say the branded name was necessary but not sufficient. So AT&T spent $100 million to get name recognition. It didn't budge the market. In fact, the market went the other way over time because they didn't change their behavior. My favorite example, of course, is Smuggler's Notch. In the late 80s and early 90s, we were known in some circles as Fort Smuggler's Notch, a party resort. It was a place that college kids came. We used to say college kids gone wild on their break and weekends. Many, many busloads of teenagers crowding the lift lines from Montreal, paying $8 or $9 a ticket every weekend. We had a very small summer business, questionable relationship, by the way, with the state and town, and what came to be known internally as profitless prosperity. A lot of people, but not much profit. Importantly, though, not a great place to visit unless you were in the dominant customer profile. Today, we think of ourselves as the best resort for family fun anywhere, internationally awarded and recognized as a great place for families, winter and summer, and consistently profitable. So what did we do? We did 5 things to rebrand. First, and very importantly, we kept the best parts of our reputation. Great skiing, walk to everywhere in our village, a great service ethic. Second, we focused our capital investment in family-friendly facilities, family-friendly summer water parks, state-of-the-art child care centers, among many visible signals that we were changing. We focused our ski school training on innovative ways to teach children of all ages. We hired instructors who were not necessarily expert skiers, but rather loved to work with kids. We shifted marketing from targeting groups of teenagers that emphasized the number of trails and the vertical drop and the black diamonds to families, emphasizing our commitment to children and a great family experience. We called ourselves America's Family Resort, taking a page out of Dick Rosenberg's book, because we then were able to talk to the employees and they understood the mission that we had to be the best resort for family fun. Every decision we made, every decision we make today has to pass the threshold family test. Are we easy for a family to do business with? Essentially, we addressed our culture, which led to a change in our behavior, which has led to a strong and profitable brand. So those are 3 brand stories. Now, how does that all fit into Vermont and our ability to retain businesses and to grow businesses and to attract businesses? Vermont's business brand will be established by our behavior. Behavior will follow culture. And the question is, how do we preserve the best of our culture while transitioning into a strong business reputation? What behavior do we wish to preserve and what needs to be migrated upwards? I think you can tell from the AT&T story that spending brand recognition money is a strategic matter, where I think we'd rather be a Rosenberg and not an AT&T. It's clearly not how much you spend. So here are the questions. How do we want to be perceived by the business world and why? I have reviewed all of the brand studies that Vermont has done over time. They're well done, but I think they either miss the point or don't go far enough regarding the results about business. Our question is, how do we migrate to an enhanced vision while preserving the best of how Vermont is perceived? Now, the Vermont website makes it clear we have the human infrastructure to support business. I can't think of anything that we can't offer in Vermont. The question I ask is that infrastructure easy to do business with? I believe if it is, we should tell the world that it is, and we should do it in a very focused way and if not, we should find a way to upgrade starting today.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. Tommy?
Let me tell you a little bit. Can you hear me?
Push the button.
Oh, no? Okay. Sonic's Industries. I guess I have to hold the button all the time, so.
How did anybody hear me?
Okay, so, did anybody hear the first part of what I was saying? Okay. So, the second challenge, or the second expansion after the first one being burdensome, even though we built in the Bellows Falls Industrial Park, it was slow and tedious going through the permit process, and we actually had to hire a consultant. A little $5 million a year business had to hire a consultant to go through the permitting process. The second time, because we were growing so fast, we needed a new distribution warehouse. There was just no suitable space that was going to be timely in our part of the state, Bellows Falls, southeast Vermont. We were within about 2 months of acquiring a warehouse just north of Nashville, Tennessee, because logistically it made more sense, and the state of Tennessee just rolled out the red carpet for us, and they were going to treat us like we were IBM or something like that. It was amazing. Fortunately for us, Ben & Jerry's was acquired by Unilever slightly just before this, and they decided they didn't need the big ice cream freezer in Bellows Falls anymore. So with a little scrambling and some good negotiations and figuring out that the ice cream freezer could be converted into a normal warehouse, we averted that move. But certainly the obstacles of permitting in a timely manner almost changed the way Sonics would look today in Vermont. And these comments are going to lead in some things I say later. The second biggest challenge, and this continues to be ongoing, we're an engineering company. Even though we manufacture, we play in a little niche industry, the automotive aftermarket, specifically for people who rebuild automatic transmissions. And we sell all over the world. We've got over 70 patents. And for us, we have to have highly skilled, highly motivated people, and it's in southeastern Vermont, it's just hard to find those people. We're constantly challenged to find technically skilled people, not just engineers, but QC people, graphics people. There's a lot of support that goes in, inventory planners, all those kinds of things that you all deal with. We've been somewhat fortunate to have a little source over in Keene, New Hampshire. Keene at one time was a booming community, and over the years, some of their manufacturing companies have faltered, and we've picked up a lot of good engineers there. But once again, being a border town, these guys aren't paying income tax there, and so one way or the other, we're either going to spend money trying to get people to move to Vermont, or we're going to have to make up that difference between their take-home pay in New Hampshire versus what their take-home pay as working for a Vermont employer, or even though they don't live in Vermont. So that's something we're always faced with. Nowadays, even at the entry-level position, a lot of the local applicants that come in can't even fill out an application, and it's disturbing and it's sad. And often, when they can get through that process and they seem like they want to work, they seem to lack the commitment or the know-how how to actually meet the responsibilities of being at a job every day. And I can tell you, Sonics isn't a sweatshop. We probably treat people better than 90% of the companies in this country. That's just a judgment on my part. So those are a couple of challenges that have always been, there are a lot of things day to day and week to week that you deal with and you forget about, but those have been pretty big in my eyes. There have been some good opportunities in Vermont that I think we would have maybe not had for us had we been somewhere else. First of all, I'm going to promote somebody here today. VMEC has just been an outstanding partner for us. It started about 13 years ago when we needed a new ERP system, and they had I think the program was called Soft Select, and they actually came in and did the work of one of the big 6 consulting companies for a fraction of the price, and took us through the whole quote process, and the software package we selected we still use and thrive on today. And because of that good experience, we use VMET for Lean Initiative training, both training our employees and facilitating people. We even converted one of our engineers from engineering to being a Lean expert, and it's just paid huge dividends for the company. And I don't think you have that kind of access. We've continued with innovation engineering, and you just don't get that anywhere, and I think that's a real strong suit in this state. We probably wouldn't have done the Lean training initially if it hadn't been for the Vermont training program, where we actually received grants to help fund all this Lean training with VMEC. So I think those are opportunities that are unique to this place, and I think if you're not aware of them or taking advantage of them, and you don't have to be a manufacturer to do that, I think it's a great opportunity. And the other thing for our company in particular, Vermont is, we became an ESOP 2.5 years ago, and Vermont's got a good culture and good resources for doing that. You go to a lot of states, and it's almost a foreign conversation, but the amount of expertise we found in this state when it came time to consider making that decision was really, really good. So the next part I'm going to read, because these are supposed to be challenges and opportunities for the future, and we were asked to send these in by Fred ahead of time, and so I want to make sure I get it down, and then we'll talk about it. First we'll start with the opportunities, and I'm going to read this, but I did send this in, and these aren't my original ideas, but I think they're important to consider and support and get behind. Vermont could be a leader in early childhood education, including Birth to 5 commitment, which allows children to arrive at school ready to learn. This leadership can produce both immediate and long-term benefits to the residents and businesses of Vermont. Lease of interest in the Vermont Business Roundtable has done an extensive amount of research and work to promote this idea, and it really is the way we're going to get a better workforce in Vermont long-term. Bellows Falls could be the first case study for this kind of approach. I mean, it's a poor community. There are teenagers having babies, and if these kids don't get a good start, they're not ready for the school, and they're not ready for the workforce down the road. And so I think this is really important. I think this concept aligns with Governor Shumlin's new education agenda, and I think we all should be more aware. I'm sure most of you are, but we should really get behind this. This is going to take a really big group effort to push over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, and beyond that. I think another opportunity would be to develop best practices for new and growing businesses in Vermont, which include more creative incentives and resources from the state, and more cooperation with the higher education institutions of Vermont. Through some of our growth, we got some incentives that, on the surface made sense, but they didn't really align to what we were trying to accomplish. And I think each business is different, and I think there needs to be more latitude in the kind of incentives that you can give a startup company. It's hard enough to take the risk. And most people starting companies could go out and get a pretty good paying job somewhere else and take no risk. And I think, to broaden the tax base here and create prosperity in Vermont, we need to do everything we can to help businesses grow. And it's expensive doing business here, so any incentive or any help we can give businesses and be creative about it, where it's just not cookie cutter, would be really important. The challenges going forward kind of tie hand in hand. It is difficult to find qualified, skilled candidates for jobs in Vermont, especially in southeastern Vermont. We seem to have difficulty retaining our young, educated adults and have them stay in our state and our workforce. So I think we need to align the business's needs with the training that our students get in school, so they will be ready and available, and do a better job of just communicating to them about, okay, this is what these 5 or 10 or 15 companies in Southeast Vermont or Northeast Kingdom will need, and these are kind of skills that will get you a job, and we just need to do a much better job at that. And then finally, you know, and everybody knows this, but the cost of doing business is high in Vermont. The level of regulation of the state government and the uncertainty about the regulation can challenge every business. There's stories about Act 250 being difficult, slow, and I referred to that earlier. And even the uncertainty in new legislation can be difficult. You know, we need to do more to make it inviting for businesses to expand and grow here, and look less like an obstacle course and a challenge. So with that, thank you.
Steve, you're up.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here. I've never been to this facility. It's quite lovely, and I want to congratulate the other speakers here at this panel. We're all saying a lot of similar things. One of the things that keeps coming up is we're trying to grow our businesses. We're having trouble finding the talent that we need to fill the jobs that we have. For myself, I started a business 25 years ago called MicroStrain. It specialized in advanced sensing systems that are wireless and that use energy harvesting, so they don't require batteries, and they send the data up to the cloud. That business was acquired in September last year in a successful asset transaction, and the company that acquired us is the Lord Corporation. They're a $1 billion company with headquarters in Cary, North Carolina, but they're not moving MicroStrain. They're keeping it in Williston, Vermont, and they're growing the company in Williston, Vermont. And when we think about the brand that MicroStrain had, it really was about innovation and solving problems for its customers. And I had cultivated a workforce that was really encouraged to try things. So if we failed, that was okay, as long as we learned from those failures and kept pushing. So my attitude was always that if we're not failing once in a while, then that means we're not working hard enough. So since my company's been acquired, I am now free to pursue other opportunities. So I formed a venture firm called Swarms Ventures after my initials, and I made an investment with Dr. Peter Spector, who's a cardiologist, really brilliant cardiologist out of the University of Vermont, who has come up with software that teaches electrophysiology, which is how you fix irregular heartbeats using ablation and catheters inserted into the heart. But I'm interested in investing in other people who have great ideas, not to do small things, to do important things. And I think we need to dream a big dream and want to do great, important things. And just because we're in Vermont doesn't mean we have to think in a limited way. We should think that we can change the world, and starting with our neighborhoods and starting with our towns and cities and our state, but everywhere. We're citizens of the world. So my interests going forward are to find smart people and great companies and invest in them. And my challenges in doing this, and I think all of our challenges are shared, is to find smart, qualified, well-trained employees to fill the jobs that we can create. And for me, that means that colleges and universities need to connect with businesses to enhance experiential learning. And they can do this through paid internships, co-op programs, continuing education in partnership with established and emerging Vermont businesses. So Vermont High Tech is a great example of how that can be executed. Jerry Ghazi is here. I encourage people to talk with Jerry from Vermont High Tech, who's at this meeting. Established businesses need help marketing their summer job opportunities to students, and students need help to learn about those summer job opportunities. So we need to make that happen, and if the state can help, great. If we have to do it ourselves, then we should be doing that ourselves. But part of our brand needs to be that we have opportunities. kids who go out of state to go to college shouldn't get lost. We need to find a way to reach out to them so when they come home for the summer, they can connect with companies like yours, companies like mine, to work here in the summertime. We're talking about opportunities in engineering, information technology, computer sciences, life sciences. These are great jobs. And what an intern can get out of working for a Vermont company in the summer is they can learn how to apply what they're seeing in the classroom. The businesses learn which students fit well into their company, and they can train them so when they graduate they can come work for that company full time and they're ready to go. They know the culture and they know how things are done. I also feel that students need to be encouraged to be entrepreneurial very early in their career development. I'm talking senior year in high school, maybe even sooner, but certainly freshman year in college. There should be opportunities for students and faculty to attend 3 or 4 day courses in running startup businesses, and they should be taught by experienced adjunct faculty in concert with free, massively open online courses or MOOCs. Local schools like UVM should offer meeting spaces for entrepreneurs, local level, to connect with faculty, undergrad, and grad students in concert with these online courses to facilitate discussion, cooperation, and community involvement to spur business development. And innovative Vermont companies should take advantage of federal programs like the SBIR program, which stands for Small Business Innovation Research. My company was almost solely funded through SBIR program. Over 25 years, we raised somewhere around $4 or $5 million in funding from the federal government to build advanced sensing systems. And if I can write SBIR proposals and win them, you guys can too. The state of Vermont should reduce barriers to economic development of innovative clean industries by keeping the tax burden on those industries low, echoing what you guys have said, and streamline the Vermont Training Program Assistance, which you also mentioned, VMEC and Vermont Training Program, fantastic programs. We got to make those available to qualified businesses, the ones that are creating full-time jobs, as well as supporting paid internships. Lastly, I just want to finish up with Vermont has a fantastic brand. Our brand is, it's a beautiful place to live. I love it here. When we hire people into our company, they don't leave. They're Vermonters. They want to live here. So job retention is fantastic. So it's paramount that we take care of our environment. That means clean waters, clean tributaries, and a beautiful lake. And we need to embrace that and make that part of our brand, as well as communicating to the world that we're creating jobs and creating great opportunities. Thanks.
The delightful thing about speaking last is there's very little pressure to say anything useful. As my fellow panelists have covered a wide range of issues. I don't know, it's great to be here. It's great to be at the Paramount. It's a beautiful facility. We should be very grateful to be here today as the Muppet Show is on hiatus. And it's always been my dream to stand on the stage of the Paramount with my own microphone. Unfortunately, that dream also included tight pants, a guitar, and a lot of screaming young women, so we're halfway there. I was sitting around yesterday trying to move as little as possible and thinking about what I'd say today about wonderful things about Vermont and our business and how happy we're to be here in Kumbaya and all that. And as I was sitting and thinking, out of the blue, out of nowhere, my wife started telling me a story about to me the story of how this person was struggling. They were struggling to find help, to keep help. They were struggling with their taxes. They were struggling to heat the place. They were struggling to light the place. And before they would even serve one meal to a customer or register one guest, Their expenses were in the low six figures before they even took a penny home for themselves. And as I'm listening to this story, two thoughts come into my mind. And for me, that's a gold star day. And so the first thought I had was, what makes my anecdotes about doing business in Vermont more valuable than hers, than the woman and the family that's struggling to run this inn and restaurant? Why is my story, why am I up here rather than someone like her, who struggles with utility bills and heating bills and labor issues and the cost of regulatory fees and other fees? Why is that story not as important as what I could tell you? Because I got to tell you, life in Vermont for my company is really good. It's great to be here. If we need money, we go down to Goldman Sachs and we ask for some. Although lately I would rather ask the state of Vermont for money than those people. But if we have a staff that registers our motor vehicles and goes through that process. We have another staff that handles all our permitting issues. We're in a great business. We're in the business of resource sustainability at a time when that ethic, having been born and bred in Vermont, is spreading around the region and the world. People are coming to our doors. We have no trouble finding talent. In fact, I interviewed for a high-level financial position recently, and what struck me is for the first time, every candidate I talked to said one of the reasons they had sent in a resume was because they wanted to live in Vermont. They were tired of the crap out there in the rest of it. Do not, as my dad used to say, Joe, don't mess it up. Don't mess that up. That is very, very important, and particularly as you look around the world today. People are losing faith in the government. The things that government does often causes people to lose that faith. And we are very lucky indeed to have a political and government structure, while not perfect, is probably one of the most accessible and least corrupt in the nation, and that's very important. A lot of talk about the Vermont brand. Not a favorite word of mine, but I will say this. Vermont's brand is anti-business. Now, before you get all hot and bothered about that, I want to say that Vermont's brand is anti-business in the way that Apple's brand is anti-technology. In that Apple has made a fortune teaching people that technology can be warm, inviting, personal, and aesthetic. And in many ways, Vermont has the same brand when it comes to business by saying, when you come to Vermont, business can be fun, warm, inviting, and a place to create value. Vermont's brand is this to me. Come here, lead differently, live differently, and profit differently. And I think that is very different from what the rest of the world is doing. As my friend Paul Costello would say, those are great Vermont values, and I think the rest of the world is slowly realizing that they want Vermont's values. So, don't mess it up.
Wonderful comments from these four gentlemen. So now it's your opportunity. We have microphones down front. I know a number of you in this crowd, and if you're shy, I'm going to be extremely disappointed in you. So let's get up and ask some questions. We've got about 5 minutes that we can work these gentlemen over.
I would love the opportunity to answer a question that wasn't prefaced. Joe, what were you thinking?
Right. Yes, in the back. Gentlemen, any thoughts?
I think they have to leave Vermont. I had a son who, when he was in high school, it was Vermont, Rutland, and he could not wait to get out. And he went and spent a year living in Switzerland. And he had managed to get himself admitted to a small college in Kentucky. No, I kid. And he just wanted to go as far away from Vermont as possible. And he called me halfway during the year from Switzerland. He said, "Dad, I want to go to UVM. I've been away. I've seen the rest of the world, and I want to come back to Vermont and be a part of Vermont's future." And I don't know if that answers your question, but I find once you get out of Vermont, you can't wait to get back. And maybe we need to find experiences for kids to be students in other places and maybe have jobs in other places. I'm not sure.
Other questions? Yes, and if you would come down to the microphone, because they are taping it, and we want to be able to pick up your comments and questions.
Good morning, Jeff Graham from Springfield. I want to thank you all for reading the brochures that I gave to you, because you actually gave all the words that I'd love to talk about right now. Equal for all, co-op, keeping people coming back to Vermont. One of the things that I've said for years, and I think they told me the answer was I'd have a better chance of seeing God than actually having a college come to southern Vermont that people could go to. I'm really looking for something from everybody here to equalize the state so that there's not just everybody north of Rutland and Randolph experiencing some of the educational opportunities. I think the South needs it. I think we've been considered another state. Tommy certainly has said that Rockingham could use it. I'm from the neighboring town of Springfield. I think today I'd love to have everybody have that thought in their mind of how do we equalize the opportunities to everybody in the state that I think has been very lax in that area. If you think about the co-op program, I have a daughter that actually went to Northeastern. She on average earned $22,000 each year while she was doing her co-op on a $42,000 educational cost. If we can do that, that would certainly bring students who otherwise were financially challenged here to the state. It would give us some opportunity to have people come and enjoy skiing, certainly give the rubbish community and refuse community a big shot in the arm, give us all of the opportunities for high tech, for resorts, for engineering, medical, all the things that the South has to offer. I'm a little upset that we haven't had that opportunity, and I'd like to have it be a topic of conversation today. Thank you.
I would like to answer that question. The cost of higher education is totally out of control. I mean, it's way out of the reach for many people, and folks have to take mortgages out on their home to put their kids through school. It's really ridiculous how expensive school has become. But at the same time, there's a growth of massively open online courses, which are taught by Stanford and Harvard and MIT. They're free, and they have 400,000 people attending them all over the world. What I would like to see happen is that the Vermont community colleges, which there are, as Ken Horstman told me this morning, there's 12 of them across our state, that they work with kids who would like to go to college to take some MOOCs, massively open online courses or MOOCs, take those classes and get some basic fundamentals behind them, take a test to be certified that they know the stuff, and then that will provide them with an opportunity to get into a school from that point on. I see no reason. There's so little barrier to that doing it because the costs are so low. They just have to have access to the online courses. You have to be able to get online. So if we can figure out a way to do that within our communities, and maybe Ken can help us with this, I think that is a very simple and easy way to get started.
Any other questions? Yes, please come down if you would.
Good morning. One of the issues that I've seen a lot, I'm from Springfield area as well. One of the issues that I'd like to have your thoughts on is we've seen a major commitment. We've heard about it earlier from the governor, and we're hearing it about you in regards to educating our workforce. We can continue to educate our workforce, and we can continue to do co-op programs and internships and the like, and companies like yours will succeed and thrive. When we look at smaller businesses, one of the things that we very often see is they have an educated person or a skilled machinist walk into their small business, and he interviews for that job, and they really like that guy. He's come out of the tech program up at Vermont Tech, and he's ready to go, and they offer him $10 an hour to work. He goes back to his family and his apartment that he's paying $900 a month for, and he and his girlfriend or wife sit down and do their budget, and that $10 an hour isn't going to cut it. He gets a phone call from a company in North Carolina that evening, and they say, you know, we got your resume. We'd love you to come down and talk to us. We'll fly you down, and we'll pay you $19 an hour. He's not going to stay in Vermont. So we can educate our workforce. What are your thoughts on what the state can do or what we can do to help Vermont businesses to become competitive with the wages so that those skilled machinists and those talented workers will and be able to stay here?
The danger is we're paying $19 an hour too, but only, in your example, I'll use your example, we're paying $19 an hour too, but only 10 of it's going to the employee. Do you understand what I'm saying about what you can do to help us? Do you know what I mean? There are a lot of costs, unfortunately. But I think your question is more about just wages.
I think the question is really marked towards sustainability of the workforce. I think reducing your costs is one thing for sure. But when we're thinking about maintaining our economy or maintaining our workforce, we're not going to keep skilled labor here or an educated workforce until our educated workforce can afford to own homes and live in our communities. If they can't afford it, they're going to move where they can. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how to bridge that gap. Or maybe that's something we should all be talking about today.
It's everything. I mean, the answer would be, on the surface, turn into Texas. But we don't want to do that, do we?
No.
So, I mean, it's really difficult. You got to make economics is really the science of making choices about happiness and value and where you're going to put resources, and that's the whole conversation, I think.
Thank you.
So that's going to wrap up our panel for this morning. Please give these gentlemen another round of applause. So I think they've provided you folks, and with some of the questions, a lot of food for thought as you go to the breakout sessions. Again, as Lawrence indicated, on your name tag, it indicates where your breakout session is, what you've signed up for. And again, please go to the morning session and the afternoon session as well. If you signed up for breakout 1, there is a change in location. You're going to walk up this ramp over on my right, or my right, your left, and you're going to be behind the stage curtain here. So please move to your breakout sessions promptly.